My name is Alina Tysoe, and I am the creator of My Sister the Werebeast, and this is True North Country Comic Podcast.
Welcome to the True North Country Comics Podcast, dedicated to celebrate Canadian comic book and graphic novel creators and supporters. I'm John Swinimer. On this episode, I chat with Alina Tysoe about the graphic novel My Sister the Werebeast, published by First Second. Please like and subscribe to this website by hitting the subscribe button so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Originally from New Zealand, but currently residing in Toronto, Ontario, Alina Tysoe is a pink-haired 30-something-year-old illustrator behind What's Up, Beanie, a humorous autobiographical webcomic that's viewed by 1.5 million people every week, which she also sometimes makes into animations. Alina worked as a 2D animator and storyboard artist for 4 years before diving into the world of webcomics and graphic novels. In her spare time, Alina can be found playing video games and looking at cute videos of dogs. Her recent graphic novel is entitled My Sister the Werebeast. In the graphic novel My Sister the Werebeast, something strange is happening to Peanut, but Mira and Rosie can handle it. These two perfectly ordinary, capable sisters are fully confident they can study for their school's upcoming combat trials and care for their adorable baby sister Peanut. So what if she cries so hard she floods the entire house, or randomly breathes fire, or transforms into a very soft, menacing creature? Mira and Rosie will just hide Peanut's powers until their parents come back, and they'll know what to do, right? To make matters worse, rumors of a werebeast attract the attention of a monster hunter, and there's something unusual about their seemingly quiet town. So without further ado, here's my chat with Alina Tysoe about the graphic novel My Sister the Werebeast, published by First Second. So Alina Tysoe, thank you very much for taking time to chat with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited.
Well, I appreciate your time. Before I get going with all the questions, I would like to know, what was the first comic book that you read?
Right, so I didn't have a lot of access to comics growing up, but I think my main introduction to comic books were in my teens. But I read a lot of Peanuts comics as soon as I found them at the library. And I think a big moment for me was finding the Flight anthology edited by Kazu Kubuyoshi. Just seeing all the different ways that artists tell short stories through the comic format was very inspiring.
That's great. That's terrific. Well, great stuff when you're growing up and trying to learn the craft. I'm wondering who or what inspires you to create today?
Yeah, so the art community online has been and still is incredibly inspiring to me, from like the DeviantArt days of the old times to the artists of Instagram and other social media platforms today. I think the graphic novel industry has a lot of amazing books in the last decade as well. So there's a lot to be inspired by. There's so much good stuff being made these days. I think if I were to say which artists specifically inspire me today, that would be Kate Beaton, Jen Wang, Megan Nicole Dong, Vera Brosco, Amy MG, just a lot of really great people that made some really wonderful books.
Absolutely. Lots of great talent there, that's for sure. And
Yeah.
speaking of talent, let's talk about your latest graphic novel, My Sister the Werebeast. Wondering, before we get started, maybe you could talk a little bit about the story. How would you describe the book to someone?
Sure. So, My Sister the Werebeast is a story about two teenage sisters, Rosie and Mira. They have to look after their baby sister, Peanut, while their parents are away on a work trip. Looking after a little kid can be stressful already by itself, but the extra twist in this story is that their little sister has suddenly developed a variety of magical powers. So one of those is transforming into a strange blue werebeast creature, hence the title, My Sister, the Werebeast. So the two older sisters have to deal with that on top of their schoolwork and exams and high school drama. So it's a story about growing up as a teenager and sisterhood, first of all, and just figuring out who you are.
Wow. So I got to ask you, what was your inspiration for the book? Because it sounds like maybe there was something in your past that maybe made you want to write this.
Yeah, for sure. So, might not come as a surprise, but I'm the youngest of three sisters myself. So, a big part of the inspiration for the sibling dynamic in the story was my relationship with my own two older siblings. They were teenagers when I was born, and I was a very chaotic child. The characters in the story themselves are quite different from my family, and there's a lot of obviously supernatural things going on. So it's not an autobiographical story itself, but that's where the idea originated for the main family dynamic. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that because it's sometimes kind of tough when you're dealing with siblings and whether they're older or younger, but definitely
Yeah.
stories there for sure. Now, it's been said that you should always first create for yourself, but I'm wondering who ultimately is the target audience for your book?
So I believe the official age group for this book is middle grade. So that's 7 or 8 years and up. But I feel like it depends on what kind of books you like to read. And if it's a kid, then what the kid's reading level is. So there's maybe a couple of little spooky elements here and there, but it's mostly humorous. So I feel like it shouldn't be too scary for kids a bit younger. And myself, I read a lot of a wide variety of comic books from early reader to middle grade. So I feel like there's, in many ways, it's kind of an all ages book. I feel like the storylines of the sisters could be relatable to a variety of ages from, little Peanuts experiences to her teenage siblings experiences. In terms of the kind of a person that I think who would enjoy the book, it would probably be someone who likes silly humor, cute things, fantasy, and heartwarming stories. That kind of thing.
Yeah, just about everyone would like that for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I want to switch gears here now, talk about your creative
Mhm.
process, and perhaps ask you as you're going through it, making this book, I want to ask you what tools you use to create it as well.
Yeah, for sure. So for the art, I work mostly digitally. I use my iPad and the iPad pencil and a software called Procreate. So that lets me draw basically wherever I am, which is very handy if I have to travel or if I just want to go and draw in the park or something. As an artist, I'm a bit of a, as I call, gremlin creature where I just sit in my room and don't leave if I let myself do that. So having something a bit more portable lets me actually move around and enjoy life outside of my room a bit more. For the creative process, the writing process itself, I think, is the most stressful and the most fun part for me at the same time because I'm a very visual person who I think I would say I'm an artist first and a writer second. So for most of my books, I quote unquote write them by drawing very, very fast, sketchy thumbnails that only I can read. Sometimes it means I never even write a proper script and it just goes through a series of revision in the visual way until I'm ready to do a proper pass and on a pencil draft of the book and then line art and all that good stuff afterwards. Yeah.
I appreciate what you're saying, but with doing
Hmm.
that sort of method without a real script, do you have in your mind's eye the ending or the story through line, so to speak, so that you don't have to go back to the
Yeah.
original pages and redo them all over?
Yeah, I think a lot of the time I don't start on a story until I know kind of roughly how it ends. I sometimes do multiple drafts and they can be very different, but I do have those key elements that stay the same that keep that story together. I will also sometimes write a summary, kind of like a skeleton of the story ahead of thumbnailing it this way, but it's kind of a very loose process for me, I guess.
Cool. Well, as long as it works for you, that's the main thing.
Yeah.
That's for sure. Now, I was reading your bio. In
Mhm.
addition to writing graphic novels, you also do web comics. So I'd like to ask,
Yes.
how is it working with a major publication house on my sister, the Werebeast, versus doing something on your own?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. I actually really enjoy the experience. I enjoy both ways of working for their own reasons. So obviously, when you do a webcomic for yourself by yourself, there's no extra input from anybody else apart from your readers potentially and the feedback that you get from that. But when you work with a major publisher, you get the benefit of having an editor who also wants your story to be the best that it can be. So I've greatly enjoyed working with my editors for my sister, the Werebeast, because I feel like it's really good to have a second pair of eyes on a story, especially when you've been looking at it for a really long time and you can't see the potential pitfalls anymore. So they'll point those out, they'll help you out to work out any plot holes that they notice, and maybe if something doesn't make sense or yeah, that kind of thing. So I think that's been a really wonderful part of the process, and they help out with a lot of things on the way to the book being what it is.
And
Yeah.
that's important too, I guess, trying to keep creative people on deadline. I guess that's always a thing
Yes.
because sometimes if you're doing it on your own, it's like, I got plenty of time, no problem. But they,
Absolutely.
yeah, they want you to stick to a certain date.
For sure. Yeah. I would say that if you're someone who struggles with deadlines on your own project, especially if you do a webcomic or something like that, setting deadlines for yourself and then having a friend who keeps you accountable in it helps very similarly. Just a little tip for anybody who struggles with that, because I used to quite a bit.
That's very important. That's for sure. That's for sure. So we'll be talking
Yeah.
about my sister, the Werebeast. So I
Mhm.
have to ask you, do you have any other projects on the go?
Yeah, so I have an ongoing early reader graphic novel series called The Great Detective. So that's for kids that are a bit younger, and it's about a little puppy who thinks she's a detective, and she has a cat sidekick called Truffles, and they go on all sorts of adventures. So I have two more books in the series coming out in the next 2 years. And of course, I'm also working on my online webcomic project, What's Up Beanie. It kind of started as a webcomic, and I've been moving more towards making it to an animated project in the recent years, which has been really fun. And I may also have some picture books cooking in the background, but I'm not allowed to talk about them yet.
Right, right. Well, we don't want to get you in trouble by any means. But you just mentioned animation. That leads me maybe
Yeah,
to one more question about that is
sure.
what's your preference? Do you prefer animating or do you prefer having a print book? What's your preference there?
Oh, that is such a difficult question because I think I genuinely love both equally. I wouldn't be able to let go of either of them if someone made me. They're just very unique and fulfilling in their own way creatively. Yeah.
Okay. I know that we're here wrapping up 2025, but I'd like to ask if
Mhm.
you have any shows or events planned for 2026. Anything on the go?
So I am currently just looking into the comic conventions mainly around the Toronto area, but I haven't applied for anything yet, so stay tuned for that. Any information about my adventures in the new year will be up on my Instagram and my website for anyone curious.
And speaking of that, where should people go online to find out more about you for today and tomorrow?
For sure. So, for information about my appearances in my books, you can, of course, go on my website, whatsupbeanie.com or alinatysoe.com. They both lead to the same place. You can follow me on Instagram on my artist page for more personal art and updates about my books, or my What's Up Beanie Instagram page for the comics and animations. But for animation specifically, YouTube would be the best place to watch them.
Very good. Well, Lena, those are all the questions I have for you, but I'm wondering, is there something I didn't ask that you'd like to get across in this interview?
If I were to send out any message to your viewers, I would say comics are wonderful. If you don't already read a lot of comics, please try them out. Explore different genres and types of comics. There's so much good art and storytelling out there. Try reading more webcomics online and not just what's on the bookshelf, or just give a chance to a comic book that you see, because there's just a lot of gems hidden everywhere you look.
Thanks to Alina for taking time to chat with me. You can discover more about Alina Tysoe online at whatsupbeanie.com and on Instagram at Alina Tysoe. And thank you for tuning in to the True North Country Comics podcast. I invite you to visit the True North Country Comics website to listen to even more conversations from creators about making comic books and graphic novels. I also encourage you to subscribe via the website so you'll be notified about new podcast interviews and article posts. This podcast is available wherever podcasts are enjoyed. Please like, follow, and subscribe. You can follow along True North Country Comics on most social media sites, and you can send any and all feedback to John at truenorthcountrycomics.com. Thanks for tuning in, and come back soon for another episode. Bye for now. True North Country Comics podcast is copyright True North Country Comics, copyright 2025.